No, not the memes. The memes are in my eyes.
You know what you're getting into. Come on.
I literally advertised it as like, guys, we're doing something crazy this week, and it involves Nick Cage. And I hope you guys didn't think I was joking, and I also hope you guys didn't think that I like knew Nick Cage personally, because I don't. Like, I wish I did.
Yes, and the Tomodachi bros rise from their graves.
Well, most of us, at least. Jitaku ended up falling into his grave and decided, hey, I might as well take a nap since I'm here. So it's actually just Clockwork Cog and myself for today.
Hey, I'm back.
But it's okay.
We will persevere and we will survive. Some way, somehow.
Yes, welcome listeners to a very special holiday Tomodachi Bros podcast episode. Not only is this the first Tomodachi Bros podcast that's been airing in a while, because, I'm very sorry. We didn't. We're very sorry. It's a lot of stuff went down. A lot of personal stuff for everybody.
We did not. I'm very sad about that.
We didn't do a Christmas episode last year. Yeah, all of us had a rough run on things, but hey, we're back today.
We're promising we're back. We have risen again, and we are bringing you a very special, totally caged Halloween.
And what better way to rise on Halloween
than Nick Cage? Yes, we decided, in part because we were kind of already leaning that direction to start with, like, guys, Nick Cage movies. Let's do this. It was actually Cog's suggestion, and I was like, that's awesome. I am game. Let's do it.
Yeah, because I realized when we were putting out ideas for what we were going to do for Halloween, I saw a couple movies that had Nick Cage, and I was like, wait, he's got a bunch of scary movies.
Yeah, he does. Well, he has a huge IMDb page, if anyone ever wants to look at that. It's a very interesting read over. Especially knowing that he voiced Superman at one point. It was like, wow.
Recently.
Plus, he's one of my favorites. He's also just really entertaining to watch. So
He is. And so we're going to go in order of chronology through these 4 films. Because Itaku did pick a film. Even if he's not here to rep it, we shall do that on his behalf. Shall we get into it?
Let's go.
It is a non-stop spoiler onslaught going forward. Abandon all pretenses, ye who enter here.
First up is Clockwork's pick, Gone in 60 Seconds.
which I would not categorize as a Halloween film, not a horror film, but we're easing into it. We're easing into it.
But you know what? It was fun to revisit because, okay, this is a true story. In my household, when this film came out, not only did my family really like it, we liked the title song a lot. Like, we played it all the time. And the instant I heard the very first lyric to the song, I'm like, this is going to be in my head all week now.
I was told this was a very good movie from a lot of people. I never actually watched it until recently. Never had a chance to. Never was really in my library of movies. So everyone told me you should. And we did. It's like we're gonna do a Nick Cage movie, and I'm like, well, why not? Let's do this one. And it's funny too because as I watch the other movies, Nick Cage has a lot of cars, a lot of nice cars in his movies, and I feel like I know what this stems from this movie, a movie about Nicolas Cage being a master car thief, and in one night stealing, what was it, 50 cars in one night to try to save his brother from a massive mess up that he did.
This is actually a remake of the 1974 Gone in 60 Seconds, by the way.
Oh, I did not know that, actually.
I did not either.
Yes, it is actually one of the earlier remake films that actually did really well before we got flooded with our current state of just remaking literally everything. But
Right.
The remake flood that has not stopped, by the way.
Yeah, that's still going. That's still a problem. That being said, this movie is immensely entertaining and in many ways really, really dumb. It's like some of the things they do would not work in real life. Like halfway in, I remember going to the chat and talking to the guys. I'm like, guys, I'm watching a cartoon. I'm watching Nick Cage in a cartoon, but the cartoon is real life.
yes.
And it was funny because I was like, man, this was made in 19... Oh, wait a minute. No, this was made in 2000. Oh, wow.
Yep.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is an aughts film. Not this. This can't hide behind
No, it
it was
can't.
the 90s defense, because it wasn't.
Oh yeah, they do some incredible stunts that, I mean, I even remember watching it when it came out being like, yeah, that car would be just completely destroyed after a jump like that.
Yeah. Okay, class. There's this thing called a suspension. So it stops your car from falling to the ground. And if you try to ramp it off of a freaking tow truck bed, you're going to shatter the axles and just pancake the car into the ground.
Also, if you're hit by a wrecking ball through a wall, yeah, you're not going to live through that. Do not try that at home in any kind of future stunts you might be thinking for YouTube or anything.
And the guy's just like,
How many
"Oh,
did anybody
dude,
get
are you
a
okay?"
sudden
He's
meme
like, "Oh,
moment
no,
there
I'm
when I was
okay."
suddenly like, oh, this is totally
like,
a Miley
"I'm
Cyrus
okay."
moment because Nick Cage can literally say he
Like
came
a
in
wrecking ball.
like a wrecking ball.
Well, he dodged the wrecking ball. That was
That's
the
true.
point. Like, and the guy's just like, "Oh, no, I'm okay." I'm like, "No, you're not okay. You just got hit with a wrecking ball and put through a brick wall. You are gelatin at best, my good man."
And also just being able to drive through all those streets, those busy highways, and not hit, and it not one street being congested with traffic or anything of that nature. And I'm like, man, that must be like the luckiest like drive through.
Oh man, that still goes on in modern films. I did see one of the most obvious modern examples, Top Gun Maverick, which I actually really enjoyed. But yeah, he punches out going Mach 10. It the freaking punches out at Mach 10 in the very beginning of the movie, and I'm like, yeah, you don't walk away from that. I'm sorry, you are like missed.
You are now just like dissolved. But here's the thing. I'm poking a lot of fun. It's immensely entertaining.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
From start to finish, I was captivated, and like there's a lot of great character chemistry, and like all the characters have these really big personalities, and they're bouncing off each other, and there's a lot of really witty repartee. It was kind of that pre-Marvel quip writing. It was very, very smart.
And it has its charming kind of silly moments. Like before they do the heist, it's tradition to turn on Lowrider and watch Nicolas Cage kind of just focus his mind, and he goes, "Let's ride."
Oh, that's one of the most iconic scenes from the movie too.
Which will actually be kind of a recurring phrase throughout these movies. It's a great heist film. It's a great action film. And much like National Treasure, Nick Cage pulls off a lot of stuff that he should be in federal prison for and walks away scot-free.
Well, it was done by the detectives from the I guess Grand Theft Auto 8. I don't remember what their particular division was, but he says that like they know what he's done, but they can't pin anything on him that would stick. So that's why they're like, you do anything wrong, you're going in jail for like life, because they know exactly what he is and what he's done.
Right.
And just, yeah, even from like people like, because I'm not the biggest car guy, but I know a lot of like one of my buddies who's a car guy says this is his favorite movie ever just because of all the different all the classic cars and everything.
They picked some nice ones. Like, I'm not even that big a car guy, but even I know, I'm like, those are like
so that
classics.
I will say it's not just a great heist movie, it's not just a great action movie, it's an awesome car movie, and the fact that you get like, I mean, of course the winner is Eleanor though.
Oh yeah.
Because like actually if I recall in the original, I think the original was actually a Mach 1, which is part of why my dad really liked it, because he owned a 71 Mach 1.
Nice.
And no, I'm sorry, that's wrong. It was a yellow 73. It might have been a Mach 1. It was a yellow 73 Mustang as well in the original, and so they did the Shelby, the GT500 in the remake, and I mean both of those cars were just like
the engine on it.
amazing.
Like I listen to engine, I'm like, oh yes, that sounds good.
Satisfying.
The roar.
And even in the original, it was called Eleanor as well. So it's man, it's just the other thing too is how they pay homage to the whole thing too, because it's like the one that got away sort of thing. You know, he has this like emotional relationship with it and everything like that. It's just the way they play it up is just fantastic.
I think his big thing is that every time he has tried to do a heist with Eleanor or a car like Eleanor specifically, something goes wrong. It does in the movie. Eleanor does stall for a second or two and gets caught a couple of times, but ends up, completing the heist and everything like that. But it does completing the heist, technically speaking. He didn't make it in the time frame, yada yada.
Yeah, he was 12 minutes late.
All because it was stalled. But either way, it's that's his whole relationship. But I mean, for the car like that, I mean,
as a nerd who gets passionate about kind of stupid things sometimes, I can relate. I get it. So, all right, this is a I would say great film. I think that's fair to say. Sneck, final score. I'm saying 8.5 out of 10.
I give it a good 3.5 out of 5.
Oh, I see how we're. Oh, there we go.
Fancy schmancy here. Okay. All right.
It's above average. I know my friend, if he was listening to this, he'd probably kill me for saying that. But it did have its moments. It did have a good amount of fun. It wasn't like amazing, spectacular, 1000% over 100 though. But it was a very fun film. I would recommend it to anybody who likes Nick Cage movies or car movies,
right?
Or heist movies.
Also that,
or that too.
I really enjoy this film. I've owned this on VHS and DVD and Blu-ray, and I really enjoy this movie. I've enjoyed it for a long time. I've seen this movie so many times. I didn't even really have to go back and watch it, even though I kind of did anyway, just because.
You had all
absolutely
the reason
well, just because there was a reason to. Even though I can almost close my eyes and like recite the whole movie with my eyes closed. So I've just seen it so many times, and it's a great one. Absolutely, I would give it a solid 9 out of 10. I think it's phenomenal.
All right, so sounds like we're in agreement. So next, chronologically, we're looking at a look at Ditaku's choice, Ghost Rider. Yeah. We're going back to the early days of the Marvel films before they became completely formulaic and overly quippy.
And political and annoying.
Yeah. That was a thing. I was actually talking about this right before we got recording. But, like, this movie is so different than any of the Marvel films that would come after. I mean, I will say Captain America and Iron Man had better action set pieces, but this had, like, the way they shot it, the way the dialogue flows, they seemed to be able to get away with anything at this point, and they felt very free to just kind of cut loose and go crazy at times in really unexpected ways. Like, I think the one that kind of floored me in that, wow, you can't do that today, was when Nick Cage as Johnny Blaze comes rolling down the highway and like cuts off this news van just so he can bother his childhood friend / crush. And he's like, you want to go out for some Italian? And I'm like, ooh, you are layering on that Southern inflection, my good man. And it's like a scene like that, you couldn't even do it today because he'd be like canceled on Twitter. But it's so entertaining, and he has this weird downplayed kinetic energy that completely reverses when they flip the fiery head on, because then he's like chewing the scenery like he's a Muppet. It's insane.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I think it's more of the power dynamic between Johnny Blaze, the person he originally was, and then going into Ghost Rider, is that it's that power up it's that power up kind of mentality,
Right.
as in the scene like in the prison cell where everyone's kind of beating him up as he's like trying to not trying to like like destroy everybody in the room, since everybody has committed evil except for the one kid that he points at and goes innocent. And I was just like, okay, don't know what that has no other meaning besides has no other scene or other meaning besides that, and I don't know if it's ever shown in the other movie or not.
I don't think it was actually supposed to be anything other than showing that Ghost Rider does not kill indiscriminately. And that is the thing. Like Ghost Rider, if you look at him, he's a scary dude with a punk motif. Like, of course, like you would have every right to be scared of him. But generally, if you're not like a serial murderer, he really is not interested in like messing with you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Something I really like about the character is that different dynamic in that he's actually supposed to be an angel, and everybody looks at him like he's this demonic type thing. But that's what the penance stare is that he's showing them like all of their sins and the bad things that they've done in life, and like having them live it out.
And it literally only kills you if you're a terrible, terrible person.
If you're just a bad person, yeah.
And that's. They lean into that pretty heavily. Like, it really is his like go-to weapon apart from his fire chain. Which I have to say, like, the CG is a little dated and it shows in some spots, but the way they do the whip effects is just like divine. It looks super cool when he's spinning that thing around.
And I have to give the movie credit too, is that when they show off the villains, the main villain being Blackheart, the other villains, I don't remember their names off the top of my head.
No, the elemental guys.
Yeah. I was like, as he was fighting the air elemental dude or air demon, I don't know what you want to call him. It was very interesting because he's like, how are you going to fight me? Because I am the air. And then he whips his whip around and heats the air around him where he can't escape from the whip and burns. And I'm like, oh, that's pretty clever. However, that's a nice one. The Earth dude, is just he just heats up the Earth and then he dies. And then the funniest part is that when the water dude grabs him, pulls him under, and then he's like, I'm just going to superheat the water. It's like after every kill is just kind of like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. While the air dude was kind of like, you know what, I can see that. That's a pretty clever one. I'll give him that one.
That's kind of the reaction to fighting Ghost Rider. Like, I remember right after the Planet Hulk arc, there was a battle where Hulk and Ghost Rider were fighting in Lower Manhattan, and they basically like pancake the city, and Hulk is this panting, frothing, raging mess, and Ghost Rider's like, are you done? I have better things to do today than.
And he just leaves. Yeah.
He just gets bored and leaves. It's like, you can't kill the Rider unless you're magic, so you can't like smash him. And that's like why like the Earth guy was already kind of like done before he even realized it, because he's like, oh, I'll sneak up on him and hit him real hard one good time. And Ghost Rider's like, are you kidding me? Like, really?
I do wish, and this is my biggest gripe with the movie, it's probably a minor gripe and probably pulling straw. I wish they CGI'd my boy Blackheart and Mephisto a little bit more than just changing their faces a little bit on the human characters.
I agree, but I'll go one step further on that. Okay, here's the thing. For those who haven't seen the film, you learn that Sam Elliott's character was the Rider before Nick Cage or Johnny Blaze. And they go together across the desert to the town of San Venganza, which is where this contract for the souls of everyone who lived in that town was up for grabs. And that's kind of the MacGuffin of the main arc. And what they should have done, and did not do, they should have had Sam Elliott's Rider and Nick Cage's Rider fight the huge, monstrous Blackheart that we see in Marvel vs. Capcom 2. If they did that, perfect film. Perfect film, 12 out of 10, if they did that. Now, of course, the hero has to fight the villain by himself, and Sam Elliott's like, oh, I used up the last of my power just riding here. And I'm like, then why did you transform? Wait, dude.
Yeah.
Bad timing.
Why didn't you just ride there and then do a fight?
You guys knew you were going up against Blackheart.
As he pointed out, it was his last ride to show Nick Cage where he needed to go to complete his mission, pretty much, to seal the story, as it were. And that was the one use for his power, which doesn't make a lot of sense in the long run, but yeah, you are right.
I get it, but dude, it would have been so cool if we had two writers fighting against like the huge demon Blackheart form. Like that would have been like the coolest thing. I think me of 15, 17 years ago probably would have lost bowel control over that kind of a fight scene.
Oh yeah, that would have been super cool.
But here's the thing. It's super entertaining, and revisited again after all this time, especially now that I've gone through the arc of Marvel movies. I pretty much dropped off after Endgame and Infinity War and Endgame, and I haven't really gone back at all. But going back and revisiting this was super cool. It was, again, it has a very different vibe, and it carries itself very differently. And while I think the ending was a little bit of a letdown, it's still really cool, and the fact that once again, the villain kind of hoists himself on his own petard. He's like, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll just eat all the souls that are indebted in this contract. And Ghost Rider's like, haha, joke's on you. Now you have a soul to burn.
Yeah, many souls to burn.
Mm-hmm.
Many souls to burn. Yes.
Which was an interesting kind of, I don't fault the story for that, but I thought it was like when I first heard it, I was kind of like, that's kind of a weird, like, I don't want to say Deus Ex Machina because I don't think that's what it actually is, but it was one of those.
No, just a weird decision on the villain's part. Because, like, yeah, it does make him stronger, but he knows the Rider is nigh unstoppable. Like, the only person who can even, like, begin to contend with the Ghost Rider is Doctor Strange. And even then, the two rarely cross paths because they usually are fighting the same enemy.
Yeah.
But all in all, I'd say this movie is a solid 8. It is immensely entertaining. I get to see Nick Cage chewing the scenery and flipping off a helicopter. It's beautiful.
I do really enjoy. I enjoyed this movie. I will confess, I've been a long time Western comics nerd for a long time. I still keep up with certain happenings, even though they piss me off. And the current big two are destroying themselves and trying to just annihilate the characters that I grew up loving. It's really frustrating, but going back and watching this was a nice reminder of some funner times with these characters. And Ghost Rider was always one of my favorites. And I remember seeing this in theaters. And I mean, overall, I enjoyed the movie because it was at the time, I just remember being so impressed that the movie even existed and that they were even making it. Because it used to be a thing where it was like, oh man, what if they made, a movie like before, like this was, we had Spider-Man and that was about it. You had the Batman movies that would come out every now and then. And like there was not a lot of superhero movies at the time. And then the fact that they did this movie, I can still remember being in the theater, having my mind blown that this was even a thing. And then, I will admit, the action sequences are still a bit underwhelming for me because I'm like, oh, this could have been like so much more intense. And the thing I appreciate is they did a sequel, by the way, people. There is a sequel, Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. And if I look at the two of them together, because they're both Nick Cage, I feel that you watch this movie more for the character development in terms of like a more original, closer to the classic Johnny Blaze, like original story arc of, the Daredevil bike rider that becomes the Ghost Rider. And then you watch Spirit of Vengeance just for over the top, wacky, balls to the wall, like action sequences of like peeing fire and like just absolutely Nick Cage going like full blown Nick Cage, like as hard as he possibly can. And so I see the two of them together really kind of working together in that sense. So, yes, as much as, freaking modern, Marvel and DC kind of forgot how to hire actual fiction writers and instead decided to hire a bunch of political pundits and destroy everything their entire brands were based on in terms of any kind of concept of how to write good stories with these characters. that was me being a little bit frustrated at the current state of things, but this was a nice refresher. So, but as much, it just reminds me that I can go back and enjoy these characters despite all the crappy iterations that they keep trying to come push down people's throats in the modern times. I really enjoy this movie. Sam Elliott's in it. And oh, by the way, man,
just a little.
How about that Eva Mendes? Like, come on.
Well, when you're right, you're right.
So I will give this a solid. I would give this a solid 8 out of 10. It was fun to watch and go back and revisit. It brought back some good memories.
So the inner metalhead in me, when I saw the bike transform again, I was like, oh my God, that is metal. Yeah. It looks so cool. The spikes coming off the bike and everything about the movie. Just the whole placement and everything. Even though I never really watched Ghost Rider or read Ghost Rider or anything like that, I was really drawn to the movie just for that aspect as well. If I had to give this score, it'd probably be a 3 out of 5. It's hard for me, like, a lot of the villains just being normal dudes who are quote unquote demons and not had, maybe their face is changing a little bit here and there. Just kind of really, it doesn't have as much of an impact as I thought you would have in some of the other hero movies and stuff like that. Or at least, ones that at least have some kind of costume kind of thing that have a lot of tech in them or something like that. So it was overall to me just mid, but it has a lot of really nice aspects of it that makes it better than it probably would have. It didn't add certain things like the really cool bike and just certain scenes, and Nick Cage being Nick Cage, of course, the whole reason we're doing this.
All right, so time to move on to our third film, which was Cog's pick, Mom and Dad. Cog, why don't you lead this one?
All right, so I watched this one randomly with my wife one time. I think it was another previous Halloween time, and I just remember how it is a really goofy movie. And so basically the plot follows, it's almost like a Dawn of the Dead type thing. All of the parents start going basically crazy and they want to kill their children because of like radio waves or some unreal, really kind of undefined sort of thing. Yeah, it basically just goes off the wall from there, where Nick Cage and his wife start just going crazy trying to kill the children, and the children are like running around trying to survive, basically, all the way to the point to that there's even the grandparents show up and are trying to kill the previous generation, so like Nick Cage and his wife. So the whole thing is like, if you are not the child of somebody, they will completely ignore you. So it's like, it's specifically parents trying to kill their own like birth children, and it's absolutely bonkers. A lot of it is just really goofy. Again, it's just Nick Cage. Just a lot of stuff just makes no sense and is just really silly, and just some of the weirdest dialogue of just stuff that just happens, and just it's goofy. It's really goofy is all I'm saying.
It is.
I think out of everybody who watched this movie, I was the one who I sat there and watched it, and I watched it, and then I had that kind of Mr. Horse mode for instance, where I was just like, no, sir, I didn't like it. Unfortunately, it was extremely just very basic, very everything. Nick Cage's acting was like the only thing, and maybe some of the other kid is here and there, but like my favorite scene was the one where it was really it's really fun. It really, like, I don't feel like it was it was Nick Cage acting in itself, is when he is attacking the boyfriend, when the boyfriend is trying to protect the girl. I don't remember her name, where he raises his hand in like this god, like this power my hand of, and bam! And I was just like, that was so over the top.
Talk about the pimp smack where he's like, oh, blah. Yes. The big like whale.
Dude, the boyfriend gets the snot beaten out of him in this film, and he just keeps getting up.
Oh man, he tanks hits like a champ.
But to be perfectly honest, that is like the only thing I really remember about the movie, other than just just not random because there's a point to it as the movie shows, but just kind of a very predictable violence and a little bit of over the topness. I don't know.
I'm not sure I'd call it predictable.
I mean, when you see the kid, okay, so that kid's gonna die, or or at least there's going to be something happening to it. I don't know. I found it very sort of predictable, and as I was watching, I'm like, I just not have fun with it.
The thing that ended up happening with me is when they kind of started explaining this, like the story insofar as one exists. I got kind of a flashback to the original Night of the Living Dead. Because, like, every explanation the movie gives you about why things are happening the way they are is pretty much an excuse for the action set pieces.
Yeah, basically.
And I'm like, oh, so there is like there is no point, and that's okay. That the no point is the point. And the thing that threw me off, the thing that was both weird and fascinating, was how avant-garde the cinematography is. Like, there's a bit pretty early in the film where Nick Cage is like getting into his car and the music has like this really dramatic sting and he just looks around like he's looking for something, and the camera like goes Dutch angle and starts like panning and zooming and like showing the neighborhood around him, and nothing is happening. Literally nothing. There is no one there to observe. But there's this like this whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. It's like, what is going on and why?
Exactly.
So that scene, as you're pointing out, see, that's one of the things I was talking about. Is like I watched that, and I feel like that's kind of where we kind of split on the angles. I watched that part, and I was like, I felt like, well, nothing happened. Like that felt kind of like I guess it. Maybe it's just, maybe some of the what they're trying to do is just flowing over the head. I will not reject the fact that, things fly over my head a good amount of the time. But it was just like that scene. I'm looking at it, I'm like, okay. Nothing happened. I'm like, okay.
I'll say, like, I love, you can tell just Nick, but every time they do those weird sequences, like when he's talking to his son and stuff, and they just like zoom in on his face and he's like just looking at him and he's, and then like change position.
Yeah, the camera, I remember there was a bit like about halfway in, he's talking to his son and the camera like is slowly zooming in on Nick Cage.
Yeah.
And then it cuts very suddenly and you can tell there's a jump cut. And then he's like laughing and the camera like jumps away from him. Like you were trying to have a conversation with him and you physically jumped away from him. Like it's almost like the camera is a spectator, like a character in and of itself. Because the way it behaves is not the way a cameraman behaves on a normal movie set. This is hard, like, okay, none of these are really normal movies, let's be honest, but like I got very immersed in that kind of thinking, and like you could do a drinking game. It's like when something that makes no sense happens, take a shot.
Yes.
When the camera does something completely against the rule book of cinematography, take a shot.
Yes, absolutely.
If Nick Cage like changes expression mid-scene, take a shot to that. It's like that's how it started feeling. I'm like, this is a really, what it reminded me of? It reminded me of those really weird, low budget FMV video games back when CDs were first becoming a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And like it has that weird dream-like feel to it. It felt like a dream. That's my best way of summing it up.
Yes, absolutely. Because I remember my wife and I watched it and we were like, what just happened? We were just so thrown off. There's so much just like weird stuff that happens in this movie. Everything from like just he's like sawzall. The sawzall means it cuts all. You know what I mean?
Going a little Schlegel there.
It's like, or like the parts where he's just like going completely bonkers and like screaming at his kids, and it's just more Nick Cage just being like Oh, just completely bonkers.
It's full Muppet mode. Yeah.
It is full Muppet mode.
Also, the part where they explode, both the parents almost explode because of the gas igniting. I was just like, okay, there's a little cartoony here because I don't think anyone would be standing after that. Like, my God.
And it's like he's fighting his dad, like, get your claws off me, you bully dinosaur. Like,
That is probably my favorite line in the film. I'll be honest. I actually had to pause and just laugh for like 5 minutes straight while I was trying to comprehend it. And like the boyfriend, like gets like I was saying, like this dude is like a tank. You just can't stop. I kept thinking like, oh gosh, they're gonna kill him. It's like, no wait, he's fine. Oh wait, they're gonna kill him. No, he's fine.
dude, every hit he took, I was like, okay, he's finally dead. That had to have killed him. That would have killed any normal person. What? He's still alive? Okay, no. Now he's dead now. He's got to be dead.
They just can't stop this kid.
What the heck? He's back again. You know, like it just got so ridiculous that I was like, oh, he's back up again now. Okay, of course. Like you could totally survive.
The full explanation that we get is like Cog said, like weird radio waves that cause the generations to turn on each other. It's like we already have that. It's called the internet. But like. This movie, I don't know if this is a Dadaist masterpiece, to bring back a turn of phrase, or someone was just really bored and was like calling all their friends like, guys, we're going to make a movie with like as little effort as possible, but I have a really nice camera, so let's do this.
And Nick Cage will be in it.
And Nick Cage is going to come too. It's going to be great.
That's basically what that feels like.
It starts, like that's the thing that threw me off. Is like at the very beginning, we see the perception of everything through the lens of the teenage daughter. And she's on her phone, she's on Facebook and MySpace, and like she mentions how her parents really don't talk to her parents don't have a life, and her grandfather is like senile and suffering the like PTSD of, I think, the Vietnam War. And there's all this stuff. I'm like, oh, okay, this is all setting up for something. And there's going to be like this big moment later on where they like talk about maybe the horrors of war. No, nope. None of that. Literally none of that. That goes nowhere. That is literally there to pad out the runtime to feature length, because it's just this weird, surrealist, out of this world experience of Nick Cage chewing the scenery and knocking the snot out of a teenage kid. Now, I can't in all good conscience call this a good movie, because I think that's wrong. But
oh, no. It's definitely wrong, yes.
It's zen and it's badness.
Yes.
Giving it a number is going to be really hard, because any objective measure would be like 4 or 5 out of 10. But I think I have to lean a little higher, because like for all the weirdness, for all the surrealism, I was entertained. I wasn't bored. So 7 out of 10.
I'm right there with you, Snack. I had the same kind of experience. I was just like, what is this wacky movie? And I don't like what it's like a fever dream. I was just like, I remember even my wife, when we finished it, we were like, what the heck did we just watch? And it has, I will admit, as a parent, it has a really weird, because basically by the end of the end, they basically tell you, like, the whole point is basically like, we love you so much, but sometimes, holy crap, you get us so angry and we just want to kill you. And actually getting to be a parent now, it takes on a different,
hits a little closer to home.
It hits a little too close to home, is what I'm saying. Yeah, I know little Cog's gonna be like, "What are you trying to say, Dad?" Like later down.
just you know, just
I'm not saying
why
anything.
is this movie talking to me through it? Oh my gosh.
You get frustrated sometimes, you know.
What I'm saying, son, is you're built to last.
Yeah,
you'll be great when your girlfriend's future father-in-law tries to beat the snot out of you. You're gonna get right back up again. Like
Man.
Yes.
Oh yeah. What would be your score? Same thing.
I don't even know how to score this, because I agree with Snack. Is it a good movie? Objectively, no, but is it a weird, entertaining experience? Absolutely, and it's something to watch. And it's just, like I said, it was like a fever dream watching it.
Someone laced my pizza with cough syrup, apparently. That's how this movie feels.
Yes, exactly. That's what it is. That's what it is. And if you're in the mood for just something completely bonkers and weird like that, I would recommend it. But I'm gonna probably land right with Sneck there. It's like a 7 out of 10.
Unfortunately for me, I enjoyed last year The Killer Tire more than this movie that had psychic powers. Yes.
Really?
That's a bold proclamation, but okay.
I had more because of the wild and wacky shenanigans the tire gets into on its journey of trying to murder everybody during this entire time. I found that just to be more enjoyable and wacky than this movie being just Nick Cage yucking it up and then giving someone the hand of God once or twice, and then
terrible dinosaur.
I think I'd give it a 2 out of 5.
Okay. I mean, that's fair. Like, objectively, that's probably what this film deserves.
Probably, yes.
All right, and that brings us chronologically to just last year with my choice, Willy's Wonderland. So what happens when Scott Cawthon rejects a Five Nights at Freddy's script? Well, it's simple. You file the serial numbers off and you put Nick Cage in it.
This is Nick Cage acting like if he wanted to play Doom Guy in a movie, but he couldn't get the role, and decided to just be in the Five Nights at Freddy's movies instead and just play the same character.
I mean, yeah, basically.
The reason I say that is because Doom Guy is a demon slayer, and the animatronics were created by the spirits of serial killers who did satanic ritual to become the animatronics. Also, Nick Cage does not say a single word in this entire movie. He is a silent protagonist.
He doesn't ever talk, and he is credited as the janitor, and that's it.
Which I love, because you know what he's doing? He's going into the house of Satan and cleaning that up, and is like, I am the janitor. I'm the hand of God on this demonic place. Wham!
He does literally and figuratively.
He is also the man that every caffeine addict wants to be, as he chugs a nondescript soda pop, as I would call it for wherever he is, every hour on the hour.
Loves his
because
soda.
It seems like his watch is set to like ping every hour. It seems like, and he just chugs one every single hour. It seems like.
Well, I mean, if you get a break every hour, I'd have a 6-pack on me too. Like.
But he is dedicated. He is dedicated. Like one of my favorite scenes was when the lead girl, forgot her name, I don't think she got a name.
She's really not as important. Okay, yeah, there's like some teenagers in this film, and a lot of them get killed. None of them are important, none of them are significant, and none of their plots really go anywhere.
By the way, for those that haven't really messed with Five Nights at Freddy's, I'll be honest, I'm aware of it. I haven't really bothered to play the games personally. I've seen them. I'll be honest, I haven't gotten sucked into it yet.
Yeah, that's more my thing.
Yeah. Despite that, I was still very entertained. And basically the concept is Nick Cage is a stranger who likes to drive fast car. I guess he just drove off of it's almost like he drove off of the set of Gone in 60 Seconds.
Yeah, because he has a nice car here too.
Because he's just like driving an awesome car.
They put like freaking spikes in the road.
They put spikes in the road. He gets basically marooned in this town, and they basically trick him into like, hey, we'll fix your car, but you have to go, in order to pay for it, he has to go to Willy's Wonderland, and you have to clean the place up. And so he does.
It's basically the evil Chuck E. Cheese, for those who don't know.
Robots coming to life.
So one thing I would like to add is he is tricked by the town because the animatronics have killed before, and they're wanted to use him as a sacrifice. As they trick him to put him in there. That's the main thing, is because of the to satisfy, so they wouldn't kill any more of the the townspeople.
To keep the murder cult happy, they give them a sacrifice every now and then by literally just marooning random schmucks. But today, they didn't get any random schmuck. They got
more than they
way
bargained
more than they
for.
bargained for. And a thing, like, this is one of those things that I only notice on a repeat watch. But, like, the whole thing is one of the first things he finds is this pinball cabinet. And he gives it the scrub down and he gets it working again. And the first time you see him play it, he's like, he fails miserably. And then he's like, okay, I'll come back to this later. And you see him return to the pinball table repeatedly throughout the film. And every time he does, he gets better at it really, really, really fast. But then you notice when the animatronics start coming at him, because they decide, oh, we'll just like ambush this guy one at a time and whoever kills him, kills him. This plan backfires because he gets really good at fighting these animatronics because of the way he like rapidly improves his skills. Like he's a Rune Factory protagonist.
Almost like, yes. The big thing, and I want to put this out there too before we really get into it, is that I believe with all of my heart that when they were making this movie, they said, we want to make a horror movie, but Nicolas Cage was so unfazed the entire movie because of the character he played. They had to add the extra characters in there to classify as a horror movie, because it literally is, instead of it being Doom Guy destroys Chuck E. Cheese, is Doom Guy destroys Chuck E. Cheese as random schmucks die, because why are they there in the first place?
That you could literally make that the subtitle to this movie, is just Doom Guy destroys Chuck E. Cheese.
Yeah, because like the whole thing, and the only one of the teenagers who actually matters is like the lead girl. And the whole thing is her mother is the sheriff of the town, and she's in on it. She's in on the take, and she knows like why they do it. They know what they're doing, but she's like, oh, this is for the greater good, is to keep the peace. And when she finally realizes that Nick Cage is taking out the trash in more than one capacity, she's like, I have to stop this because things will get worse for the town if I don't. So she like holds him at shotgun point and handcuffs him. So the janitor doesn't have his hands presently. And like 3 animatronics try to gang up on him. What does Nick Cage do? He kicks the jukebox like he's Dante from Devil May Cry and starts just like chokeholding them and popping their heads off to a catchy remix of Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes.
Yes.
This is one of my favorite films of all time.
The glory kills, as I will call it, since we're keeping this Doom theme, are so over the top and amazing. It's almost like Nick Cage is like, I also played Mortal Kombat a bit, well, as I ripped the spine out of this animatronic.
Yeah, it's like he freaking Metal Gear Revengeance is one of them and tears the entire spinal column out like a predator.
As he curb stomps one of the animatronics on the urinal of a stall. And I was just like, I'm looking at this like, what is happening in this movie?
I told you guys this movie was great.
No, I was saying something I really appreciated about this too, beyond like, even if you're not as big into like Five Nights at Freddy's and gaming and stuff like that, is that a normal viewer watching, or even if you've watched any kind of horror movies, he's basically being what everybody else wish they could be when they watch a horror movie. Where, you know, people go back and watch horror movies and they're like, I remember going back and watching old horror movies, like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Run, you idiot. Or like, hit him, grab something and hit him with it. And like, shoot the guy, shoot him. What are you doing? He like embodies all of that emotion in just like what everybody would like to be doing in a horror movie, which is just beating the crap out of the thing that's trying to scare them. And it's pretty satisfying.
I think the saddest part of the movie, now not talking about bad part, I'm saying the saddest part. The movie itself is really out there, and I can't really give a heads or tails if it's actually good in quotation marks or not. It's out there in that case. Is the deputy. The deputy kind of does like, he's following the sheriff's commands. The lead girl kind of talks him out of it and be like, okay, you know what? You're right. I'm going to do a face turn and we're going to stop these things so that way the whole town can be saved, and then dies. Instantly instantly the next scene. I'm like, oh my.
Doesn't even get, yeah, he doesn't even get the chance to actually act on it. He gets ripped apart. And it's like, this movie is very irreverent in that regard, because like you think there's going to be like this big clash between the deputy and the sheriff. There's not. There's not. It is just Nick caging the crap out of these animatronics.
Oh yeah.
That's the film.
Also the ending where, because I was like, in my head, I was like, well, he did kill all but there's still the two left. The mechanic and the rich guy. The lady animatronic blows them all up, which I was like, oh, that's an interesting way. And then as they're driving away, which by the way, the lead lady, because she has nothing to go in there anymore because everybody died now except for Nick Cage, just gets in his Mercedes. I think it's a Mercedes. It's a really nice car, by the way. Again, the whole motif of after 6 seconds, every movie he's had has a nice car in it somewhere. Gets in and they find the Spanish automaton who got beaten up by the lady, who, by the way, takes a shotgun and just starts beating him in the crotch with it the entire time. And just has the weirdest dialogue with the funniest dialogue in that as well. And just runs it over and then...
Yeah, because he speaks in Spanish the entire time, but they actually subtitle what he's saying as she's kicking the crap out of him.
And then he runs him over and then that's all the automatons. Like, that's the literal end. Like, the ending is the last automaton dies as he runs into him and he explodes into a million pieces. And I was just like, that is a interestingly fitting end to what was going to be a giant cliffhanger.
You see, there's two things on this ending, and I only noticed this in a repeat ending. But point one, when the fairy girl, I forget her name, when the car explodes, she doesn't get caught in the blast. She's thrown off camera, but she's still intact. The movie doesn't act on this information, and she could have still been destroyed. But if they wanted a sequel, there's your hook. Now,
interesting. I didn't pay 100% attention to that. I did not notice that.
I only saw it when I saw it the second or third time. I really like this film. And the other thing I noticed is this movie doesn't seem to care whether they sequelize it or not. And that lack of pretension, I think, kind of elevates this above a lot of other horror movies in that respect, because they don't even bother. They don't oh no, there's something still there climbing out of the wreckage. No, they don't care. They're like, Nick Cage cleaned up the place, and like I said, more than one way, and then he just drives off in a cool car, and he shares his soda with the girl because he's adopted her now, and she just goes with it because why not?
I would not.
Isn't that what he says too? I love it when they actually give him the car back, and the mayor and the dude, they're watching him drive off. It's like, that's a bad hombre.
I would not be surprised if they were driving, and this is a sequel to the movie I'm thinking of. They're just driving in the car just after to feed the Five Nights at Freddy's house, the nondescript Five Nights at Freddy's house, and they stumble upon Quiet Valley.
And the thing is, Cog put it best. The janitor embodies everything you want a horror protagonist to do, but he actually succeeds.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
If they could make a whole metaverse. It doesn't even have to be like Willy's Wonderland. It could just be the janitor's meta story. I want to see this guy Resident Evil, no problem.
Yeah, basically, yes.
No problem.
Yes.
Alone in the Dark, no problem.
Yes.
Call of Cthulhu, no problem.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying. It's Quiet Valley is a nondescript Silent Hill, and then you got
Yeah. No, I figured that's where you were going with that. But it's I would pay good money to see Nick Cage just be this silent dude with his teenage sidekick and she's freaking out and scared of everything, and he just gets better and better at monster killing just because he keeps ending up in these ridiculous situations where he has to. I would watch 13 installments of that if they kept the same kind of energy as this movie embodied. This movie is it's terrible and it's amazing. It is immensely entertaining and rock stupid. 10 out of 10, no question.
The one thing I want to point out before I give a score is that the only real defining like possible lore story thing that Nick Cage is in the car in the beginning. It shows a pair of dog tags showing that he might have been in the military at one point. But that's literally the only part of him that you get. Everything besides his caffeine addiction. Yeah, this movie was a sight to behold. I was It was the funniest horror movie I have ever watched. The funniest. Be that as it may, I'll give it a 4 out of 5. I don't think it's like, Oscar worthy, but it was a sight. It was a watch. I will definitely watch it again. If anything, just watch the glory kills again, because oh my god, it's needlessly brutal and amazing. Also, the fact that he literally defeats Willie wielding a taped together broom handle and a sack with his sodas in it, and starts wheeling it around like he's some weirdo Jackie Chan, and wins.
Well, of course, you gotta use your soda. That's what gives him his super strength.
Yes, it is. He also doubles as a weapon too.
All right, Cog.
This is another one. It's like it's like Mom and Dad. It's like a fever dream. It's like I watched it and I was like, good Lord, this is like, what was this? And I wasn't laughing out loud as hard as I was with like Mom and Dad, which literally was making me laugh. But it was like, this movie was so gratifying for me that he was just like, again, the glory kills and stuff like that was just so satisfying. I was like, yes, thank you. Kill that. Like I was just like, yes. And it was just immensely satisfying because he was embodying that, just like, yeah, just murder them all and don't care. Like, it was so satisfying. The comedy for me kind of came more from like other people's reaction. Like, I think one of the best scenes too was the like his dedication to like his caffeine addiction, where literally his alarm goes off and he's standing there with the girl, and like they're getting ready to fight one of the animatronic, like the lady, and he just like stops. No, he just stops, hands her the knife, and just leaves to go play pinball.
Oh, he just walks off.
Oh my God. And then he goes and plays pinball, and then comes back. She
has her priorities, and he has his.
It's such a wild movie. I don't know how to quantify it. It's just like Sneck said. It's amazing, but rock stupid at the same time. I just don't. I don't even know where to land this one. I'll put it somewhere in the middle. It's a 5 out of 10. But that's like an arbitrary number because I'm thinking,
which again is probably better than it rightfully deserves.
It could probably be a 2, but at the same time, the experience was like a 9 or so, or 10, you know what I mean? It's somewhere in the middle. It's just it's weird, but it's it's definitely worth watching.
Okay, are you guys ready for this? Because I just saw this. Willy's Wonderland was nominated for awards. You would think it would be like a Razzie, but no. It was nominated for the Clotrudis Awards Best Production Design.
No, I was like, that just reminds me of like Tropic Thunder, like the winner of 3 Crying Monkey Awards.
Well, the Critics' Choice Super Awards nominated Nick Cage for Best Actor in a Horror Movie. Keeping in mind, Nick Cage doesn't talk in this film at all.
He doesn't say anything.
The only voices he makes is him slurping and going, ah, after he drinks his soda.
Yeah, like a sigh and like he grunts a little bit during the fight scenes. That's it.
Or I guess it's his little weird facial moments when he's like mastering the pinball machine, which has some weird notations of what's going on, but apparently he's got really good at that machine as well.
So this was a very weird and very entertaining Halloween lineup. And
Absolutely.
I love this a lot. Like, this was just fun.
It was fun. It was just fun. I appreciate it.
And a movie that I wanted, I recently posted in our Discord, is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which we didn't watch. I'm just saying that I want to watch it at one point, whether for a podcast or not. Is Nicolas Cage playing Nicolas Cage, the actor.
I will admit I've seen it already. It's entertaining. It's another weird one. I don't know if it's actually one of his better ones, but it was an interesting ride.
But yeah, I wanted to point that out there, that just the idea itself, I was like, that is worth watching. I feel like that is, to me, worth watching, just to see how Nicolas Cage portrays himself as Nicolas Cage.
Well, I'm about to say he has the most hands-on experience of anybody, so
That he does.
that follows. No, this was a good lineup. Honestly, I think everyone should watch these films in whatever order you want, I suppose. But you'll get a different experience out of all of them, except that they're all cartoons starring Nick Cage being just the coolest thing you've ever seen, either with a cool car or a cool motorcycle, depending on context.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I think we're going to sign off for now. Happy Halloween, everybody, from the Tomodachi Bros Review Podcast. Season 2 coming soon. Trademark, copyright, all rights reserved, LLC.
Happy Halloween!
Like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends, and look forward to the triumphant return of the Tomodachi Bros.
Woohoo!
Soon. And we'll see you there.
Thank you for listening to the Tomodachi Brothers Review Podcast, produced and recorded by The Hipster Snack, Daitaku, and Cog. Sound design and editing by executive producer Sean Taylor Brown with Cog Sound Engineering. Music written and performed by Sean Taylor Brown with Costas Vaz of Core Insight Studio on the drums. We hope you enjoyed this episode. See you next time.